Okay, now we're going to start pinning everything together. This is one of the things that I came up with. I haven't seen anybody else do it out there, so I will try to take this slowly and explain every step, and I'll zoom in whenever possible. So I'm going to take one of my pretty top squares, my 5-inch square, and one of my back squares, although we do need to double this up because, as I showed you earlier, this particular sheet that I cut up is kind of thin, so I'm doubling it up. So I'm having 2 squares on the back, and I'm going to match up the corner, and I'm going to take a second nice square and put it pretty side to pretty side. Okay, and 2 more of my backing squares. Make sure those corners match. I'm going to make sure all of my corners match. Okay, so this is what I'm calling a biscuit sandwich. So we're going to put a pin in the corner here. Now I'm going to put a pin in the opposite corner. I'm going to line up everything. We got my 2 backing squares, 1 pretty square, the other pretty square, and my 2 backing squares. Line up all the corners, put a pin. Okay, so now you see that little curve that's happening in the middle there? This one I didn't even have to do much because it's already doing it by itself, but I stick a finger and a thumb inside, maybe another finger. Let's see, here we go. Just to make sure it's all lined up, because sometimes maybe one will go this way and one will go that way, but I just want to make sure they're both of my pretty side fabrics are together, making a nice little S in there. Okay, see that? And I'm going to squish that and put a pin. So it's approximately in the center. It doesn't have to be exactly the center, but it's approximately in the center. There you go. Okay, now to put the next one on, flip this out. There we go. There's 2 biscuits pinned together, and you got your cute little tuck in there. Okay, now for the next one, 2 backing pieces, nice fabric, pretty sides facing together, and 2 more backing pieces. Make sure the corners line up. And you notice I'm not paying attention to which way my diagonal is facing. It doesn't matter if it's facing this way or this way. You'll see when we get to that point that it really doesn't matter. As long as your 2 that you've stacked up, they need to be facing the same way, but this one does not need to be facing the same way as the one before it. That's what I mean. Okay, so now I'm pinning the corners, and 2 backing pieces, nice piece, 2 backing pieces, everything's matched up in the corner, pin it. Let's take a look at our tuck here. See, now on this one, we're getting a little weight here, so now I'm definitely going to need to stick my fingers in there and straighten things up, because once I get some weight on there, it pulls down a little bit. So I'm going to make sure this lines up. Get my little S in there. I'm using both of my fingers to make sure my S is neat. Pinch it. Now that I've got it pinched, there we go. There's my sandwich. So I want to make sure all of your pieces of fabric are lined up on this edge here before you pin. If you need to adjust, peek in there. If you need to adjust, you can take your pin out and adjust a little bit. Another way to double check is look here. If one of these pieces of fabric didn't catch, then go back, make sure it gets pinned in there. Now I have 3. I'm going to make 6 of these in a row using the same method. I'm going to go ahead and add the next one. Matching up the corners, pretty sides together. 2 of my backing pieces. Match up all the corners. I figure if I just do a whole row in front of you, do each one a little bit differently. Sometimes we need to see something done a few times before it clicks in our brain. Put the pin on. Okay, here's the tricky part again. I'm just using my fingers to get that little S curve going. Pinch it to make sure it's lined up. There we go. Ta-da. Another kind of cheater way you can do it, if you're having trouble with making the sandwich, go ahead and just pin the corners without adding your next piece and make your little tuck in this one. And then you can make all your squares separately, like do one square with your doubled up backing piece. Pin the corner, pin the corner, make my little tuck in the middle-ish, and then I will just put these together like that. Remove one pin, redo this pin, match up these corners, remove one pin, redo this pin. So now my tucks aren't exactly in the same place, but that's okay. You'll see there's a lot of room for slop in this project, which I love. Remove one pin, redo the pin, or you could leave both pins in as is. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We just need to do one more, and we're done with our first row. Oops, pretty side together. I prefer this method. It just works better for my brain. But again, do what works for your brain. You can pin them all separately and then put them in rows if you want. Doing my little tuck, pinch, pin. Okay, so there we have my first row. I'll show you what I do. If I was going to make these from different fabrics and I cared about what order my rows went in, I would make a little marker. You can use one of our little scrappy bits that we threw away earlier. Make a few marker pieces, and I would write on it with a pen. I'd make I got 6 rows, right? So I would make a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6. And I would just pin to the top piece only, because you don't want to, it'll be hard to sew if you pin it to all of these. So just pin it to the top piece. And always pin it to the bottom square of your row, just to be consistent. So now while this row is done, I can set it aside and work on the next row. So I'm going to go ahead and pin together my 6 rows, and I will be back for the next step.